Bible in a year, making it easier to understand.
Welcome back, family. You're listening to Bible in a Year, making it easier to understand. I'm Stephanie Dalton, and I'm sitting here with my favorite theologian and husband, John. How are you feeling today, John? We're officially on day 51.
Day 51. Steph, I am pumped. I've got my coffee, I've got the ESV text open, and I've got a stack of research that is going to blow people's minds. I know what everyone's thinking. It's day 51, we're in the middle of Leviticus, and it's getting, well, a bit medical and messy.
That is an understatement. We're looking at Leviticus 12, 13, and the first half of 14 today. I'll be honest, when I was reading through these chapters this morning, I had to put my breakfast down for a second. There is a lot of talk about swelling, eruptions, and raw flesh. It feels a bit like reading a 3,500-year-old dermatology textbook.
It totally does. But here's the modern mirror I want everyone to grab onto right away. Leviticus isn't just about ancient hygiene. It's about proximity. It's a manual on how a fragile, mortal, leaky human being can live in the same neighborhood as a perfectly holy, infinite God. Think of it like a safety manual for a high-voltage power plant. You don't follow the rules because the plant hates you. You follow them because the power is so intense that you have to be grounded to survive the contact.
I love that. Grounded to survive the contact. But before we get to the power plant, we have to start with chapter 12. It's only 8 verses, but man, does it pack a punch for us women. It's about purification after childbirth. And John, I'm representing the listeners here. Why does a woman who just performed the most miraculous act of bringing life into the world become unclean?
It's a huge, big question, Steph. And the word unclean, tame in Hebrew, carries so much baggage for us. We think dirty or sinful. But in the Levitical system, tame isn't always about sin. It's about ritual status. You become tame when you come into contact with the edges of life and death. Think of it like this. Birth is the most intense life moment possible, but it involves the leaking of life-sustaining fluids, blood. In the Bible, blood is life. When it leaves the body, it's a sign of our mortality, our fallenness from Eden, where life didn't leak.
So she isn't sinful for giving birth. She's just being reminded that she's a mortal creature living in a world where life and death are constantly in tension.
Exactly. It's about a symbolic death being incompatible with the source of life in the sanctuary. Now, look at the timeline in chapter 12. If she has a boy, she's ritually unclean for 7 days, and on the 8th day, the boy is circumcised. Then she waits another 33 days before she can touch holy things. Total, 40 days. But, and this is the part that always starts a debate, if she has a girl, the time is doubled. 14 days of initial impurity and 66 days of blood purification. Total, 80 days.
Okay, explain that. Because it feels like the Bible is saying a girl is twice as messy as a boy. My daughter would have some words about that.
Believe me, I know. I've been digging into the why behind this, and there are some fascinating layers here. It's not about the girl being lesser. One major theory from modern scholars like Dr. Christine Garroway is that these rituals acted as a public announcement system. In a world without social media, the community needed to know the status of the newborn. Since boys were circumcised on day 8, a massive public ritual, the girls needed their own ritual marker. The doubled seclusion served as that marker. It was a way of gendering the child into the community structure.
So, it was actually giving the baby girl a longer buffer of dedicated time with her mother?
Precisely. And if you look at the medieval Jewish interpreters, they had even wilder ideas. Some thought it was biological, following old Greek medical theories from Hippocrates that female embryos were colder and took longer to form, requiring the mother's womb more time to cleanse. Now we know that's not medically accurate, but it shows they were trying to connect the laws to the rhythms of nature they observed.
I also found a link to the Book of Jubilees that connects it back to the Garden of Eden. It suggests that Adam was created in the first week and entered Eden on the 40th day, while Eve was created in the second week and entered on the 80th day. So, the mother's purification timeline is literally a modern mirror of the very first parents entering God's presence.
That is a deep dive gem. It makes every birth a reenactment of salvation history. But check this out. God's equity clause is right at the end of the chapter. Let's look at this data because it shows God's heart for the poor.
John, that's so moving. And we know from the New Testament that Mary and Joseph used the equity option when they presented Jesus at the temple. The King of the universe was redeemed with the offering of the poor.
It gives me chills every time, Steph. It shows that in God's sanctuary, the bird offering is just as holy as the lamb offering. It's about the heart, not the net worth.
Okay, but then we hit chapter 13. This is the big one. This is the chapter that usually makes people want to close their Bibles and go watch a sitcom. It's the law of leprosy. But we have to clarify right away. This isn't necessarily Hansen's disease, is it?
No, that's a huge translation trap. The Hebrew word is zarat. When the Greeks translated the Hebrew Bible into the Septuagint, they used the word lepra, which just meant scaly skin back then. But zarat was something different. It could be psoriasis, mold, or even a supernatural spiritual breakout. It could even infect the walls of your house. You ever see a house catch a bacterial infection?
I've seen some moldy apartments in college, but I don't think they were leprous.
Well, maybe they were, but the point is, zarat was often seen as a physical manifestation of a spiritual problem, specifically the sin of lashon hara, or evil speech. The sages taught that if you used your tongue to tear down the community, God would use your skin to separate you from the community.
That is a terrifying modern mirror. Imagine if every time we posted a snarky, slanderous comment on social media, a white patch appeared on our arm.
Oh man, the dermatologists would be the richest people on earth. But look at the process. The person isn't sent to a doctor. They are brought to the priest. The priest is acting like a proto-doctor or a public health officer. He's looking for 3 specific signs. 1. Is the hair in the spot turned white? 2. Is the disease deeper than the skin? 3. Is it spreading?
And if he's not sure, he quarantines them for 7 days, then another 7. It's exactly like the protocols we saw with COVID-19.
It really is. The arid ostraca, these ancient pottery shards found by archaeologists, actually mention men put outside the wall, which confirms this quarantine was a real historical practice in Israel. But here's the kicker, and it's heart-wrenching. If you were confirmed unclean, you had to wear torn clothes, keep your hair unkempt, cover your upper lip, and cry out, "Unclean! Unclean!" wherever you went.
John, that sounds so dehumanizing. Imagine walking through your neighborhood having to shout to everyone that you're toxic.
It's the ultimate cancel culture, Steph. You are effectively canceled from the community. You have to live outside the camp. But here is where the deeper dive gets beautiful. This wasn't about God hating the sick. It was about protecting the whole. If the camp represents life and order, the leper represents death and disorder. You can't mix them.
But how do they get back? That's what I want to know. Because our modern mirror of cancel culture usually doesn't have a way back. Once you're out, you're out.
That is exactly why chapter 14 is a masterpiece of grace. But we're going to take a quick break to let that sink in. When we come back, we're going to look at the restoration ritual, the birds, the blood, and the secret of the ear, thumb, and toe.
I can't wait. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
And we are back. We just spent segment 1 looking at the diagnosis of the outcast. It was pretty heavy stuff. Isolation, torn clothes, shouting unclean. But now we get to pivot to segment 2, which I call the way back in.
I've been thinking about that outside the camp thing during the break, John. We talked about it like cancel culture, but it's also like the way we treat people who have messed up in our churches or our circles today. We're great at the quarantine part, but we're not always great at the welcome home part.
You hit the nail on the head. In our modern world, we love the call out, but we don't have a ritual for the call back. But in Leviticus 14, God provides a 32-verse liturgy for restoration. And here's the first modern mirror move. The priest doesn't wait for the leper to come to him. Verse 3 says, "The priest shall go out of the camp."
That is so powerful. The representative of God leaves the holy space to go find the person in the empty space. It's exactly what Jesus did. He didn't stay in the temple. He went to the street corners, the hillsides, and the leper colonies.
Exactly. He's a gatekeeper who leaves the gate to find the one who's lost. Now, the ritual itself is, well, it's wild. If the person is healed, they bring 2 live, clean birds, some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. Stephanie, read verse 5 for us.
And the priest shall command them to kill one of the birds in an earthenware vessel over fresh water.
Okay, stop right there. Fresh water. In Hebrew, that's mayim chayim, or living water. You have a bird killed in a clay jar, and its blood mixes with running water. Then the priest takes the living bird, the cedar, the scarlet, and the hyssop, and he dips them all into the blood of the bird that was killed.
It's so vivid. So you have a living bird dripping with the blood of the sacrifice, and then what?
Then the priest sprinkles the healed person 7 times. 7, the number of completion or fullness. And then he lets the living bird go free into the open field.
I can just see it. The person watching that bird fly away. It's like their uncleanness is literally flying away from them.
It is a visual aid for atonement. The dead bird represents the death that the leper should have experienced. Remember, Zarat was like a living death. The living bird represents their new life. But that new life is only possible because it's marked by the blood of the sacrifice. Let's break down the symbols here because every one of them is a modern mirror for Christ.
John, that makes so much sense. Even the cedar and hyssop were used during the crucifixion. The wood of the cross and the hyssop branch that held the sponge. It's like God was hiding a gospel preview in the laws for skin disease.
He's the ultimate Easter egg hider, Steph. But it gets even more personal. After the bird flies away, the person shaves their entire body. I mean, eyebrows and everything. It's like being a newborn. You're starting over with a clean slate. No old hair, no old dirt from the isolation camp.
And then they wait 7 days. On the 8th day, which is always the day of new beginnings in the Bible, they come to the tabernacle for the final welcome home ceremony. This is the part one want to focus on because it's the weirdest part. The ear, the thumb, and the toe.
Oh, I love this part. This is where the theology gets feet on it. Literally, the priest takes the blood of the guilt offering, the asham, and puts it on the tip of the right ear, the right thumb, and the right big toe of the person being cleansed.
Why those 3? It feels like a bizarre game of Twister.
Priestly twister. But think about what they represent. This is the exact same ritual used for the ordination of a high priest. God is saying to this former outcast, this person who had to shout unclean and live in the parking lot, I am consecrating you at the same level as my highest ministers.
That is incredible. From the canceled list to the clergy list.
Right. And look at the body mapping for this. The right ear, your hearing is now set apart. You are to listen differently. You don't listen to the gossip anymore. You listen for the voice of God. The right thumb, your work is now set apart. What you grasp and do is for the Lord's glory, not your own gain. The right big toe, your walk is now set apart. You are to walk in holiness and stability, not wandering back into the old ways.
And then he puts oil on top of the blood. John, what's the modern mirror for that?
Blood deals with the past. It cleanses the stain of what you were. Oil deals with the future. It represents the Holy Spirit empowering you for what you are becoming. You aren't just uncanceled. You are recommissioned. You aren't just allowed back into the neighborhood. You're given a job in the kingdom.
I'm thinking about the person who feels like they've messed up too many times. Maybe they were the leper in their family or their job. They think they can never be useful again. But this ritual says that God doesn't just clean us. He ordains us for a new life.
Exactly. And he does it even if you're broke. Verses 21 to 32 repeat the whole process, but for the poor person. God says, if you can't afford the lambs, I'll take the birds. The ritual is the same. The anointing is the same. The love is the same.
God's grace really is a level playing field. It doesn't matter if you have a massive flock or just 2 birds you caught in the field. The welcome home is just as loud.
It really is. But we have to wrap this up. We have one more segment to talk about the leprous house, because God cares about your living room too. And we'll get into some final text message takeaways.
Stick around. We'll be right back after this break. And we are back for the final segment. John, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from the 80-day mystery of birth to the unclean cry of the leper to the beautiful welcome home ritual of the ear, thumb, and toe.
It's been a marathon. But we can't finish today without talking about the leprous house in the second half of chapter 14, because this really brings the modern mirror home, literally. If you saw greenish or reddish spots on the walls of your house, you had to call the priest.
I'm just imagining the priestly home inspection.
It's like Extreme Makeover, Holiness Edition. The priest would order the house to be emptied, then he'd look at the walls. If it was spreading, they had to tear out the infected stones, scrape the walls, and replace them with new stones and plaster. If it still came back, They tore the whole house down and hauled it to the trash heap outside the city.
That seems so radical. Why not just paint over it?
Because God is teaching them that rot is a serious business. You can't just decorate over a spiritual or communal disease. Sometimes, for the sake of the family and the community, you have to tear out the old habits, the old stones of bitterness or gossip, and start with a fresh wall.
And I love that if the house is clean, they use the exact same bird ritual to dedicate it again. It's God saying, I want my peace and my presence in your kitchen, your bedrooms, and your hallways.
It really shows that holiness isn't a Sunday morning thing for Israel. It's a every Monday morning in the living room thing. God wants every part of our lives to be wholeness and life.
So, John, looking back at day 51, Leviticus 12, 13, and 14, what is the big question we should be asking ourselves today?
I think it's this. Who am I trying to keep outside the camp? And where is God calling me to go out and bring them back? We live in a world that loves to diagnose people as unclean and canceled. But our God is the God who leaves the sanctuary to find the leper.
That is a convicting word. And for the person who feels like they are the one outside, what's their hidden gem?
Their gem is the oil on the blood. Your past is covered by the blood, but your future is fueled by the oil. God doesn't just want to pardon you. He wants to power you. You aren't just forgiven. You are anointed for a brand new walk.
I love that. Okay, it's time for the text message summary. John, give us the one-sentence takeaway for the group chat.
Here it is. In God's economy, your uncleanness is never the final word. He is always moving toward you with a plan to turn your outcast status into a high priestly calling.
Boom! Send that to your friends, folks. We are so glad you joined us for day 51. If you enjoyed this deeper dive, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs a little restoration today.
And don't miss tomorrow. We're getting into Leviticus 15, and believe it or not, there is a connection to a woman in the New Testament that will absolutely change how you read these weird laws.
We'll see you then. God bless.